Good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 on a Saturday morning. It is Saturday the 14th, which is like really one of the scariest days of the year because that is when you wake up after Friday the 13th and realize that you still have to go to work and do this stuff. And Michael Myers didn't show up. Wait, is Michael Myers the 13th or is he Halloween? Whatever. So I'm going to spritz my watercolors real quick and make sure that they're nice and juicy later. Saturday the 14th was a movie that they made. It was a comedy, it was a parody, it was hilarious. Go watch it. Spritz my watercolors so they're nice and juicy later on. This is the time of the morning when we pull a toy out of the toy box that we call a random object. And we call the toy box a Random Object Randomogrifier. So we have a random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier. Today it is a bust of Theodore Roosevelt. I love these busts. They're just gorgeous little busts. They're the Safari Limited makes them, but they only made like 12, and they didn't just make the first 12 presidents. They just picked the 12 very popular presidents like George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt. There's no Carter, there's no Reagan, there's no modern presidents. It's just 12 random presidents that they thought should go in the mix. And I wish they'd do all 48 of them. Of course, I guess it's really just 40. There's a few presidents that were in there twice. So it wouldn't even be 48. But it's something they could add. They could do another set every 20 years. But this one is Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt. He used to go by Teddy. He was the 26th president? Yeah, he was the 26th president of the United States. And he is known for his rugged manliness. He prided himself on his rugged manliness. In all of his books about leadership, manliness featured prominently in his description of himself and of the people that he respected. So, manliness, strong chin, physically fit. Bully! He's known for saying stuff like, bully! I don't know why one would randomly say that, but when you imitate him, that's what Robin Williams would say. He was a sickly child, having asthma as a child. He spent his childhood indoors, being educated by tutors because he was so sickly he couldn't go to school. I kind of wish I had thought of that, but I did. Kind of skipping right into the details. The composition's pretty straightforward, as long as you have room for this block down here on the bottom. The composition is pretty straightforward. The point of the composition is to make sure that whatever you're drawing actually fits in the area that you want it to fit in. My mother's in the chat saying that she hasn't read too much about him. It's one of those presidents. He's modern enough that everybody's still expected to remember him, but I mean, we're talking 1907, 1901 to 1907. What do you mean you don't know who Teddy Roosevelt was? But they just don't. They just don't spend as much time talking about that sort of stuff as they used to. There's a series of lectures on great courses about the presidents, and Teddy Roosevelt has three episodes dedicated to him. And I started to watch him last night, but honestly, it was too deep a dive for my purposes last night. I'm probably going to go back and watch him anyway, but I just didn't watch him last night. It's too deep a dive. But he was, like I said, he was a sickly child, and so he was homeschooled. It came from money. His parents were wealthy, which I guess is what came from the definition of came from money. And when he went into politics, his friends told him that he would be mingling with shopkeepers and garbage collectors. And his response to that was, then shopkeepers and garbage collectors run the world, and you are lesser men, for you allow them to be in charge of you. Well, he discovered that he needed glasses when he discovered he couldn't shoot because he couldn't see the target. And once he got his glasses, he became an excellent marksman. And all this stuff I think is interesting about him, but the thing that I think is most interesting about him is his lifelong commitment to nature and conservation. Teddy Roosevelt, what time is it? It's 5:38 already. Teddy Roosevelt, from very early on, took a fascination, especially once he learned how to read. He was a voracious reader. And this is the wrong pen. Who let me grab this pen? Why is this pen? I need to stack these pens in the order that I use them so that I'm not grabbing the wrong pen. This pen shouldn't even be there. That's my uniform pen. But he was a voracious reader, you know, because he was at home and in his rooms all the time because of his asthma. And he developed a love of science and nature. And he collected bugs and butterflies, and he mounted them and he put them in his room in what he called the Theodore Roosevelt Museum of Natural History. And he kept that thing for years. He kept adding stuff to that collection. One day, the family took a trip to town, and there was a seal in a butcher shop window. Now, this is New York in the 1890s. Would have been in the 1860s at this point. Can you imagine going to a butcher shop and seeing a seal in the butcher shop window? And it was there long enough for him to acquire its skull. And he bought the skull of this seal, cleaned it up, and added it to his museum of natural history in his bedroom. His mother let him do it. I don't know anybody in my family who would collect random bones and skulls around the countryside and leave them on the front porch to be cleaned up by ants. I guess my daughter quit listening to me. My daughter is in my ear and I'm poking fun at her. And she quit talking to me. Yeah, she said she typed in the chat. Anyway, he would continue that love of nature his entire life. And one of the things that I am most proud of him for is starting the Parks and Recreations division of the United States government. I don't always agree with how they run things, but I do like the fact that they exist and that their sole mission in life is to ensure that the parks and wildlife are preserved for the future generations, that things are not hunted to extinction. There's one episode of his presidency in particular where people were hunting on Pelican Island, and Pelican Island is where the pelicans go to mate, and people were hunting on Pelican Island, and the what do you call the bird watching society? I can't think off the top of my head. There's the bird watchers all got together and approached the president about protecting the pelicans. And explained that if they don't mate, there won't be any more of them, right? I mean, it didn't take really much explaining to make anybody understand that. If you don't let them mate, there won't be any more. There won't be any more pelicans. And he asked his advisor, "Is there any law that says that I can't declare this? That I can't do this with an executive order?" And they decided that he could, of course, do that with an executive order. And so he just declared that as a state park and protected lands, and nobody argued with him. So to me, all the things that he's noted for, his square deal, where he wanted to make sure the government and businesses dealt squarely with people, that couldn't cheat people, the Rough Riders. He formed a group of men and took them into Cuba. He'd been in political life for many years, and during the Spanish Revolution, or to the Mexican Revolution, he went to Cuba to throw Spain off of Cuba with a group of guys on horseback called the Rough Riders. Just, bully, because he's a big, strong man. And all the stuff that he did, the thing that impresses me most about his presidency is the Parks and Recreation people. Audubon Society, thanks. Straw Baby's in the chat, and she said it's the Audubon Society. But I don't think it was actually, that's what I was trying to think of, yes. But I don't think it was actually the Audubon Society, because I don't think the Audubon Society actually existed at that point. But yes, that's what I was trying to think of, yes. Alright, so that pin's done. That pin's done. I'm not ready for this pin yet. I'm not going to use this pin. I never use this. I don't even know why it's still out here. Alright. He got a Nobel Peace Prize. He's the first American president to do so. He got the Nobel Peace Prize for negotiating peace between the Russians and the Japanese. And I have to admit that in my limited American education, I didn't even know the Russians and Japanese had a war. Had no idea. So, but he got a Nobel Peace Prize for negotiating an end to that war. Where am I? Oh, okay. Might have got a little carried away with that base. Base isn't the focus for me, so I didn't pay as much attention to the details as I should have. But now it's going to be glaringly obvious that I didn't pay as much attention to it as I should have. Can't talk, farting. Let's see, what else do we want to know about Teddy Roosevelt? The Ideal Toy Company took his nickname and named a teddy bear after him. Actually wrote to him and asked him if they could use his nickname for their teddy bear, and he said yes. And so that is why there are teddy bears, is because they decided that because he was such a popular president that people might want teddy bears named Teddy. So they did. They named their teddy bear Teddy. And when he left office, or as he was transitioning out of office, they decided that, you know, they could continue this on. They could. There's a thing here. People like this. And so when William Taft took over the presidency after Teddy Roosevelt, William Taft loved possums, so they made a possum and called it Billy Possum. Turns out the general public did not have a love of possums, and so it didn't take off as well. But they exist. They're out there. When I showed it to the kids were like, I want one. And my kids would have been all about it. And I kind of want one too. They're creepy looking. I let that edge dry. I'm gonna going to regret letting that edge dry there. Nobody will ever notice it but me. A lot of times when you make mistakes, they're glaringly obvious to you, but you're the only one that'll ever notice them. Isn't that true all the way around in life and everything? You make mistakes and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And everybody else is like, did what? I wasn't paying attention to you. I was busy trying to cover up my own mistakes. Well, that's a bit dark. I was too busy with my own mistakes. To be paying attention with yours. You know what? Somebody with an interwebs connection, he had to have been related to FDR because, I mean, Roosevelt is not that popular of a name. I mean, I don't. He had, my mom's in the chat asking if he was related to FDR. You know, he had to be related to FDR. But honestly, I didn't go down that rabbit hole. Because FDR is the one that, well, there's a whole different level of politics there that I don't want to get into. I can tell you they didn't make a bust of him for Safari. But wasn't FDR a grandson? If my dad were in the chat, he could answer that question right off the bat. I think FDR was a grandson. Alright, I need to... Actually, I don't think I need to dry that just yet. What I need to do right now is add just a little bit of sepia. This thing is not white. If it were white, I would have to darken the paper behind it to bring the brightness out. But this thing is not white, so I'm going to instead add just a little bit of tone to it to lift it off the paper. Then we'll dry it so we can come back and ink it. So let's dry this real quick. Watching paint dry is probably my favorite part of the morning. I wake up, I jump up out of bed, so I cannot wait. Okay, so Strawberry looked it up and said they were related, but secretly they were fifth cousins, according to the Google machine. So FDR, we might, I assume would be a grandson, was a cousin. It's a good thing she looked that up. I would have been worried about that for weeks and weeks. Nobody, I have to cut the heater part out of it, so nobody's going to hear that I acknowledged. Strawberry looked it up on the interwebs, and according to the Google machine, FDR was like a fifth cousin of our Teddy Roosevelt. Can't talk. Harding. Yeah, baby. I have no idea what you're saying. Oh, yeah. She's telling me that my shirt matches the container that Teddy Roosevelt came in because we're both pink. I don't know that I want to ink this whole stand because that will bring attention to it. And I don't want to bring attention to it. Except I want that shadow right there to stand out. And that shadow right there to stand out. Alright. But yeah, I think the teddy bear, the fact that the teddy bear is still called a teddy bear is interesting to me because it was just that popular of a concept. But I am kind of upset that Billy Possum didn't take off because I think that would have been cool too. What is today? Today's the 14th. Saturday the 14th. We started the show with that. 14 June 2025. Bully! There's pictures of him riding a moose. Alright, let's see here. Let's turn off the camera switcher so that we can make sure and stay together. And you probably need to see that from my perspective. Why I made the decisions I made, how I made the decisions I made, and what I couldn't see. Alright guys, that is the conclusion of the Teddy Roosevelt portion of our programming. Girl 2 has already pulled out the toy for tomorrow from the Random Object Randomogrifier. Girl 2 has already pulled out the toy from the Random Object Randomogrifier tomorrow. The random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier. That's a tongue twister. Try saying that 5 times fast. That. Anyway, and it is... Ooh, it's a cat from Egyptian. It is an Egyptian cat. What does it say? Bastet. It is the Egyptian cat Bastet, which they would have worshipped as a god. My mother would have given a fresh can of tuna every night. This thing would have had kittens in my bedroom that I would have had to have taken care of. Anyway, we'll talk more about that tomorrow. This is tomorrow's toy. Or today, if you're watching the trailer for tomorrow. That said, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This was not Sketching Coffee this morning. This was Sketching Coke this morning. But I think that would have been misconstrued if I had titled it Sketching and Coke. We're not doing lines. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. This is my time to come down here and art with my besties. You guys keep me accountable to my art practice, and hopefully you're playing along with the reference photos and drawing and painting. If so, I'd like to see them. If you post them anywhere, tag them with Artistic Biker, or email them to blade@artisticbiker.com, and we'll share it with other people. But excuse me. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We're dancing. So somebody says they see me dancing, because when they see me dancing, I know that the lag has caught up to the stream, and I won't be